Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Like we say on this show, it depends on the time zone from where you are watching us from. Welcome to The Leader, courtesy of the Evangelical Alliance of Kenya on Hope TV. With Katiba Day coming up next week, that is on the 27th of this month, that is August, what an opportune time to have a discussion on matters constitution. And I'm very delighted in studio today. We have my senior here. Dr. Wahome Ngari.
It's a pleasure to be here, Edmund.
Excellent. So now let's just dive into it.
Yes.
Who is Dr. Wahome Ngari? And I know you've got something to do with the Kenya Christian Professionals Forum.
Yes.
How do you fit into all these and your profession and the passion and the love that you have? And yes.
Well, Wahome Ngari, I am a child of God. Through the love of our Lord Jesus Christ. I am the son to Reverend Geoffrey Ngari and Rachel Gathoni. I came into the kingdom of Christ through the PCA Church. I now serve in the Catholic Church. That's a story for another day. I am married to Mercy. Is my wife, and with her we have 3 lovely children, and I am a grandfather to 2 beautiful girls, and that is at personal level. As a professional, I'm a gynecologist. I look after women. I've dedicated my life to the health of the woman. And in KCPF, I joined KCPF and I was the convener of what we call the Life Committee. My business was to protect life from conception until death. Then I was invited to the board, so now I serve at the board. And I'm also a convener of the Governance Accountability Program. And at KCPF, basically we have 5 thematic areas. We protect life. We protect the family, we protect religious freedom, and we fight for good governance. We also want value-based education. So in a nutshell, that is who I am and how I relate to KCPF.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wow. I think when I say in my next life, I want to be like you. Your name precedes you, in a sense. But now when you talk matters constitution,
yes.
At one time Kenya, the constitution that we have is said to be one of the most progressive in the world.
Yes.
How did you get to it, the 2010 constitution?
Edmund, those are very painful memories. It was through political turmoil and bloodshed, 2007, 2008. We went into politically instigated clashes, and we reached a point where the country was ungovernable, and the old constitution had actually had to be suspended for us to then to get into where we are. So it is a constitution that must not be taken lightly. It is not perfect for sure. There are certain areas that are of concern. If you remember, the church led the No campaign.
Yes.
Because there were certain areas in life, family, and religious freedom that were of concern. Those areas still remain of concern to us today. But there is a large part of the Constitution that is very good, which we must celebrate. And that's why we have the Katiba Day celebration, even as we work towards sorting out the areas that are a problem. So we need to hold on to this Constitution dearly and remember that it brought us back from disaster.
Yes.
And that we don't want to go back there again. And if there is anything to tackle, then let's tackle it within this Constitution so that everybody remains faithful to the Constitution.
So in a sense, I mean, in terms of the post-election violence of 2007, 2008, Kenya went through a reckoning moment, as it were.
It was a total rebirth. Because what we have today and what we had before is very, very different. I'll just give an example of Article 1.1.
Yes.
Before, when Kenya gained its independence and was it still remained as part of the British Empire for 1 year, when Kenyatta was now the governor, the Queen was still the sovereign. Mm-hmm. And then 1 year later, we got our independence, became a republic.
Yes.
What happened is that the power of the Queen as a sovereign and the power of governor were collapsed into one, which then made the president the sovereign. The state basically was the owner of the country. Mm-hmm. And that is why Kenyatta and Moi could give you land by just signing a document. They could give you they could give you land because they were basically the sovereign.
Yes.
Now, what happened in 2010, and it is an area that is not discussed a lot in civic education, is that changed. It changed totally, where the citizens became the sovereign. So sovereignty belongs to the people of Kenya, and then it is delegated to the political leaders, to the judiciary, and to parliament. Now, unfortunately, we have leadership that still lives in the Moi era. Mm-hmm. And they believe that once you are elected into office, then you become a king, and you can do what you want with the people's taxes. Mm-hmm. That is what we are grappling with today. The Constitution, in the way it is, even with its challenges, if we were true to the Constitution, this country would transform tremendously.
You know, someone quipped the other day that Kenya seems to be one that we said 80% good, 20% bad, but it's what it is that we have, yes. And we must give life to it.
Yes,
without rushing necessarily to try and tinker and amend.
Yes.
To suit because it's still hanging on with the DNA of the past.
Yes. Any political movement to change the Constitution should be viewed with mischief. It basically cannot be for the good of this country. We don't want constitutional amendments that are about sharing positions and increasing government positions so that you can accommodate one or two more friends. It must be that we are keeping what we have and we are removing what is bad in the current. Mm-hmm. So the Constitution does not need that much tinkering. And if we could work with what we have for the next 50 years by just amending the 20 areas that 20% or whatever it is that we're worried about, yes. We should be quite good. We should be good.
Now, we've had, of course, if we, retrospect and look at where we've come from and where we are, in a sense, matters life, is one that is guaranteed in its, in the Constitution. Yes. From the lens that you see, from the lens that you look at life, and I know you're really passionate about life, private, professional, and otherwise. Speak to it. What are the issues around it? What should we be looking at, and how can we unpack it to discuss it?
Well, the Article 26 of the Constitution is about the right to life, and is very clear. So Kenya has a very unique constitution in that sense, in that it recognizes in black and white that the life of a person starts at conception. And that is very unique, because what it does is that since in our Constitution a child is defined as one who is below the age of 18, and the Constitution has now clearly defined, as in science, that the life of a person begins at conception, then we have this unique definition of a person before birth. Okay, so most other countries grapple with personhood, yes. Legal personhood, and because a child is registered at birth, then they say legal personhood starts at birth, and whatever is inside the mother cannot be guaranteed any rights, because it is not yet born. The baby is not yet born. But because of Article 26.1, then the unborn person in Kenya actually has rights.
Yes.
And that is very, very important for us. And that was pushed basically by the Christian community that was leading that fight for the Constitution amendment. So that's very unique. So we say that if a child is a person below the age of 18, right, and the person's life begins at conception, then what would you call the person from conception until birth? And that is the person we call an unborn child. All right? So it is a child, it's just that it is unborn. And I'd like to tell my colleagues who are doctors that it doesn't matter what we call what is growing in the mother's womb. Whether we call it a zygote, a morula, whether we call it an embryo, whether we call it a fetus, whatever we call it is the same as saying a child, youth, adult. All you're doing is describing stages of development.
Right.
So that is very important for all of us to keep in mind. The second part is that it says that the life of a person, nobody should be deprived of life. But it also goes on to say, unless as described by the Constitution or any other law. And that part, my lawyer friends tell me, was put in there to allow for the capital punishment. Okay, so remember this article is preserving life generally. The government, through capital punishment, seem to be allowed to take life as punishment, and therefore that had to have some clause. But when we come now to Article 26, Article 26.4, that's where we have a bit of a challenge, because it says abortion is not permitted unless, in the opinion of a trained health professional, there is need for emergency treatment, or the life or health of the mother is in danger, or if permitted by any other law. So it's a very broad area. And some of our colleagues would read that article and say that abortion is permitted in certain circumstances, maybe emergency care or the health of the mother. But if you look at that part of the Constitution carefully, the first thing we must know is that the Constitution is not a medical document.
No.
So the term abortion cannot be a medical term. It must be understood to mean an English term. It's just plain English. And if you read abortion or its meaning, then it means bring to an end prematurely. So for instance, we can abort this show.
Yes.
We can abort a journey. We can abort a process. So bring to an end prematurely or terminate. Okay? So that is what the word abortion would mean in the Constitution. It has no reference to medical care. The other thing is that it says abortion is not permitted unless in the opinion of a trained health professional, which then means that that article is saying that for you to terminate a pregnancy or for you to terminate the life of an unborn child, then you must apply medical ethics. There must be medical ethics are the ones that have been given supremacy by that article. So in other words, the opinion of a trained health professional doesn't mean that, Edmond, today I woke up and I felt like I should terminate this pregnancy. Or that this mother is so distressed that I'm going to terminate the pregnancy, and that is my opinion. So the medical opinion in medical practice, because medicine is defined as the diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of disease, then what we are trying to do is you must take a very good history, examine the patient, come up with a diagnosis, and then decide what will be done. Okay? So that opinion then means that you must come up with a diagnosis for which then you must prescribe treatment.
Right.
And that is where the understanding then is that because the lawyers say that because the article is about life, then it is saying that that article is, the 26.4 is about termination of life. Now, you cannot terminate the life of an unborn person unless you terminate the pregnancy. So generally it is describing how can you terminate a pregnancy. And there is no medical diagnosis in the world for which a doctor can prescribe the killing of an unborn child as treatment.
No.
Nowhere in the world. And I'd like any of my colleagues out there to challenge that statement. There is no diagnosis anywhere in the world where the treatment prescribed by a doctor is the intentional killing of the unborn child. It therefore means that all of us as doctors, in applying that article, and when bringing a pregnancy to an end, we must take care of both the mother and the unborn child. And that when we are bringing that pregnancy to an end, we must work towards saving the baby as much as possible. Now, because of that gray area, some people say abortion is a medical term and it means terminating a pregnancy before the baby can survive. That there's an area there that would need to be tidied up a bit. But that is basically the general understanding of Article 26(4), as far as we are concerned in KCPF.
It's very interesting you say that because, you know, they say when one part of the world sneezes, another part catches the cold. Right now, without digressing, reproductive rights, the rights of a woman to terminate until a certain period, you can actually... How do we fit in? Because it looks like, if you want to see where we're going, look at where they are.
Yes, well, there is that story about being progressive and conservative. They try to divide the world into those two. You're either right or left. The truth, Edmund, is that we are not conservative in the way we interpret the Constitution. We basically are just guided by the truth. And they're not progressive. They have just refused to be guided by the truth. So you can be mischievous about rights. So, for instance, if the unborn child has all the rights that the mother has, all right? As a doctor, I cannot discriminate against either, all right? And I think here maybe we could discuss one of the areas. There are two things that are usually used about Article 26. One is the ectopic pregnancy. This is a pregnancy in the tube, and it is a dangerous condition that can kill the mother, okay? And the only way you can save that mother's life is to go and remove the ectopic pregnancy. And if you remove it, then the baby that is within it will die. And therefore, the issue is that pregnancy has been terminated, and the baby has died, and maybe this is what it is the article is about. But I'd like to clarify that by saying that ectopic pregnancy is a disease. That pregnancy is not normal. And therefore, when the doctor is going to operate on that woman, he's not going to terminate a pregnancy. He's going to remove disease. It is unfortunate that the baby is within the disease that has to come out. But the doctor's intention was never to kill the unborn child. Yes, so that is very different from a baby who's growing inside the uterus, who's completely normal, and you go and you kill that baby and you say you are giving somebody their right. Okay, so let's give another example of the more difficult one that they throw at us. The issue about a woman who has been raped and has ended up pregnant. Okay, now the first thing for any medical practitioner to understand is that the woman is already going through a very traumatic experience of the rape incidents, and killing the baby will not reverse the rape. It will not reverse the rape. The second thing is that it will actually mean that we have added another concern to the woman, where there is a child who has been lost, because unfortunately this child is still her child. Okay, so how do we then deal with this? We have a woman who doesn't want to keep the pregnancy because it is reminding her of her nightmare about what she went through, and yet we have a child who we are supposed to preserve. That's a dilemma.
Yeah.
So the way to solve the problem is that it is for the men in this community and the government to protect women, and therefore the woman should not have been raped. So that is a challenge to us men and the government. Why are we not able to protect our women and children from rape? And because we failed, then we must use taxpayers' money to look after this woman throughout her pregnancy and until she delivers that baby. And once she delivers that baby, we must allow her to, we must release her from all parental responsibilities to that child and allow her to go without the child if she so wishes. So she goes through counseling to take care of the trauma of rape, and then about whether she wants to keep the baby or whether she wants to release the baby. And there's a whole process. And if she truly doesn't want to keep the baby after birth, then that baby can be given for adoption. So it is, you see, we can find solutions within our constitution, regardless of what other people say. And it is actually a very nasty attitude where people from the West come and tell us, this is best practice, this is already, we've already done it, you just take and copy and paste. Because what they're telling us is that we are so daft we can't think for ourselves. Yes? That we have to take what it is they have produced, and that is a bad attitude. So that's how we look at Article 26 and how we take care of the two most difficult issues. And it is not difficult to apply it while keeping the rights of the unborn child.
Very interesting, because then what comes to mind is then the whole area of marriage.
Yes.
From the constitutional lens and from where you sit, speak to it.
Well, we were very comfortable because Article 45(2) says that every person has a right to marry a person of the opposite sex. And when we read that as Christians, it was very comforting that it has been written opposite sex. So it can only be a man and a woman, and we are sorted, and it is very good for us. Until the 24th of February, 2023, the Supreme Court ruled about the registration of the LGBTQ associations and said it is discriminatory to not allow them to associate. And Edmund, I don't know how many Christians know this, but that ruling changed very, very many things.
Mischief was introduced.
It was introduced. And there is a particular Article 27(4) of the Constitution that is about discrimination. And it says the state shall not discriminate against anyone, directly or indirectly, on any grounds, including race, sex, marriage, and it goes on to list a few other things. But it uses the term sex, all right? Now, what the Supreme Court judges did, and if you read that document of theirs, there is a paragraph 79. They say that the word sex
and orientation
in Article 27(4) does not mean the act of sex per se. It also means sexual orientation of any gender, including heterosexual, homosexual, gay, intersex, and others. Now that paragraph, just that paragraph, changed the dynamics of family values in this country. Because the word sex means only two things in English. It either means male or female, or it means sexual intercourse. Now, if you read that article of the Constitution, there is no way the word sex meant sexual intercourse, because you can't talk about the government shall not discriminate based on race, sexual intercourse, and marriage.
Meant on gender.
It must have meant male and female. And then the other thing is that Kenyans, generally speaking, know the word gender to mean male and female. So they find it a softer term than sex. So anytime you hear Kenyans saying, let us have gender equality, they're talking about men and women. This ruling expanded the meaning of the word gender in law to include heterosexual, homosexual, gays. So what has happened now is we go back to Article 45.2, and we read it again. It says, now people of the opposite sexual orientation can get married. Now picture this. If a man who is attracted to men is called heterosexual according to the definition of gender, is a man who is attracted to women is a heterosexual man. So that's a normal man. He is attracted to women. And a gay man is a man who is attracted to men.
To men.
So they have different sexual orientation. So if the word sex is
orientation,
reads sexual orientation,
so
then people of the opposite sexual orientation can get married, which means according to the Supreme Court ruling, now it is legal for people of the same sex to get married, so long as their sexual orientation is different. So that is a tremendous blow to the protection of family, because unfortunately same-sex relationships are sterile by nature. And the other thing that is important for us to realize is that people of the same sex cannot have sexual intercourse. So even if that term meant sexual intercourse, people of the same sex cannot have sexual intercourse, because by definition sexual intercourse means male and female organs and the seed deposited in the woman, and therefore the sexual intercourse is about a relationship like mating in animals that is productive. That is impossible in same-sex relationships. So it is a very big blow to family life, and it is something that we'll have to address. Yes.
I mean, did they go to the good book? God created Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve.
Yes, the truth is that even when we are addressing these things, we also have to, as Christians, we understand each other, but then we also know that in the country there are people who would be of different faiths. There are people, we have the Atheist Association, for instance, whether formally or not formally registered. There are people who claim there is no God. There are people who have no religion, but they are spiritual. So the issue then would be, what is the value of sexual attraction? Okay, so from a natural perspective, let's forget our faith for a minute. What is the value of sexual attraction? Because it is created in all the animals. The value of sexual attraction is to seek a mate. And what is the value of being able to differentiate who is a man and who is a woman? Is because then if we want to seek a mate, then we need to know who is male, who is female, isn't it? Yeah. So when you talk about same-sex attraction, then from a scientific point of view, where sexual attraction is supposed to lead to mating, then it is not functional, because that relationship is sterile. Right? And it would then be areas that we can discuss later, but you find that there is usually something that has happened to that person, especially in early childhood. They're called adverse childhood experiences that make them reject their biological sex or make them attracted to people of the same sex. And 90% or more of the time it has a very psychological trauma base. It is something that people can be taken through, investigate what made them feel the way they feel, and majority of them can actually get healing.
Now let's get into an area that I think will prove very interesting. Governance.
Governance, yes. yes. Well, Edmund, I think if we look at what happened to this country with the Gen Z revolution, because it is really a revolution, the country will never be the same again. One of the saddest things about it is that you have people fighting for freedom in a country that is free. Our forefathers fought for independence. And we are now an independent country. And we have to go to the street to fight for freedom. And that is very, very unfortunate that even children and our children and other people lost their lives because of just asking for what is a right in a country with representative democracy. If you look at the cost of living in the country and the taxation and the service delivery, it doesn't make sense. I am told by our economic friends in economics that the tax revenue for this country, for Kenya alone, is greater than all the other East African countries put together. The kind of money we raise per year in taxes. Yet if you look at service delivery, we are struggling in schools. Our children are now having challenges going to school. We are struggling with health. Infrastructure, unless it is the big roads that have money from abroad, we are struggling. And yet the government proposes more taxes. So the question then is, what went wrong? And Edmund, in the governance committee of KCPF, when we discussed these matters, the board was very intentional, and it created something called the Governance Accountability Program, where we'll work with the private sector to try and deal with these matters of the macro issues of the country. We discovered that for Article 1.1 to make sense, for the sovereignty to go back to the people.
To the people.
There is need for us to organize through the family. So we cannot organize as individuals because everything we want to do is for the family. If you are struggling with fees, feeding, accommodation, is all because of the children you have. Okay, and therefore you and I and your wife and I come together and we say, as a family, we have a challenge in education, we have a challenge in accessing healthcare, we have a challenge in education. So we want to come together as families. And we found that the best unit that can organize us is a church or religious organizations. So for us as Christians, it will be the churches. The Hindus have their temples, the Muslims have their religious organization. That religious structure is the one we need to use for civic education. Let this knowledge about the Constitution and what it can do for us to change the country come down to the people, right to the grassroots.
It must permeate.
It must come down. So the reason why the government is such a headache is because nobody is holding it to account. And the only people who can hold the government to account are the citizens. But for the citizens to engage with government, then they must be organized. And then they must be organized first through these religious bodies. Now, once we have understood that, then we go to a democracy, and it is said to be a government of the people, for the people, so it's by the people, for the people, and what do you say in democracy? Democracy is a government by the people, for the people, and
of the people.
Of the people.
Yes.
Now, if it is by the people, we organize the people in families. For it to be for the people, then we must elect leadership of integrity.
Right.
In every leadership position that exists, because what is lacking in Kenya is integrity. It is not age, it is not tribe, it is not religion.
Just integrity.
Just integrity. So if the Muslims gave us their most honest person to come into leadership, and the Hindus gave us their most honest person, and the atheists gave us their most honest person, and the Christians gave us their most honest person to go into leadership, then finally the government would be for the people. And even as we struggle with the leadership, and everybody wants to deal with the president and the governor, Edmund, representative democracy, the most important people in our governance structure are the MCAs and
the ones who actually right to where you are.
Yes, because those are our representatives. They're the ones who should be listening to us and taking our concerns to the respective government. Those are the people we need to deal with in 2027. We must look for people of integrity to fill in the MCA positions and to fill in the members of parliament, both Senate and the National Assembly.
National Assembly, yes.
Yeah, so those are the most, so we make sure we elect people of integrity to those offices. Now, for it to become of the people, this one was for of the people, then we must hold the government to account. Once you're elected into office, we must hold you to account for the whole term you're in office. Because what we've been doing as Kenyans is we go and we vote for president and we do a suit. So anybody in his party, including MCA, you just tick.
You tick and without a...
Yes, so you don't know who you have put in office. And once they're in office, we sit back and we wait for another 5 years for a miracle.
Working another suit.
Now we need to be on their toes. We talked about this road, where is it? We talked about this, where is it? We talked about this, so that we follow through on that. So that is how Article 1.1 needs to be effected. Now, the question of moral uprightness, or how to elect a leader, at KCPF, when we looked around to find out how do you come up with a national tool that would allow us to elect people of integrity, we found a tool that was developed by Elnet back in 2013. It's been lying on the shelves. And because Elnet had looked at chapter 6, which is about principles of, they had looked at Article 10, which is about national values and principles of governance. Then they had looked at chapter 6, which is now about the governance, the governance structure of the country, principles, and so principles and values are in chapter 10. And then governance is about ethics. Now, they put together a very interesting tool, and that tool they call the BVIP. Okay, so BVIP is be honorable.
Yes.
So be a VIP, be VIP, be honorable. And B is blameless. And the easiest way to look at blameless is basically somebody who has no scandals. He has no financial scandals. You know him at personal level. He's basically an honorable person. He's a person who is faithful. And then the E is about empowering. You're looking for a leader who lifts up others, not one who hits everybody who seems to be challenging him. You want one who empowers.
Yes.
Then V is a visionary achiever.
Right.
And you see, you can be visionary and you're just a dreamer. You keep telling us good stories, but you do nothing.
You're a storyteller.
Yes, but a visionary achiever is that person in the village who says, if we came together, we would be able to make a better market for us. And he actually goes, mobilizes people and has some work done. He's a visionary achiever. Then inclusive. He's able to work with people of all tribes, people of different male, female, across the board. And then the last one is that he's a protector of family values and life. So somebody who protects life and family. And what we designed is that each one of these things you give a value of 0 to 5. Okay? Just based on your understanding of those values. And the first person you actually score is yourself. So if you're looking at B, blameless, then you're saying if you have a 0, you're devil, and if you have a 5, then you're God.
Yes.
Right? So in between there,
you might
give yourself somewhere. Yes. Now, once you give yourself a score, then now you go to the family level, and you say, I think Edmond would make a good leader for us, and you propose him. Okay? And the people in your church community, your religious community, your Hindu temple, your whatever, actually sit down, People who know you at personal level score you and give you a mark, okay? And the person who gets the highest mark then is given the leadership position that you're looking at. Okay, so basically you're saying we are going to have more of vetting done by people who know you, from the family right to the community that you live in. And the person who has this highest score then becomes the winner. So that would be the kind of thing that you would call a certificate of good conduct from your religious organization.
Not the one that you just go and pay and from Huduma Center.
Yes, that one only checks whether you have been caught.
In a cell.
Yes, whether you have been charged, not whether you are a thief. That one checks whether you have been caught.
Not whether you are a thief.
Yes. This, you can be a thief and you've never been caught, you have no record with the government.
Get a certificate
you still get a certificate. This one, we are saying it is your religious, is your religious organization. They know you. They have seen how you behave. And if they are corrupt and they give us a corrupt person, it is just a matter of time and we'll know who to trust and who we cannot trust.
That's right.
So that takes care of that moral leadership issue. Now the next part was, now how do we then devolve government from the ward level to the family level? And what we have developed at KCPF is what we are calling ward neighborhood associations. So you have people at the grassroots. They come together and in stakeholders, groups, the border people, the business people, the religious groupings in that particular ward come together and form a neighborhood association. Now, the neighborhood associations that are typically there are worried about water and security and roads. But for KCPF, we're interested in governance. And we have zeroed in on the budget. Edmund, if we just did a good budget that follows the law as it is written, this country would actually transform.
That's right.
So we will not interfere with what the other neighborhood associations are doing, but as religious bodies, we will come and say our interest is in governance. We want to hold the MCA to account on all matters governance, especially in budget making process, right from the beginning until the budget is ready and we go through public participation. And we shall hold our MP again at constituency level on budgeting making process and public participation. So that finally what goes into the budget is then what reflects what people on the ground really want. And that's the way to deal with it, because by the time the government is doing the finance bill, the budget starts being made in August.
That process
is a long process. And the finance bill is not even the problem.
No.
It is just saying how they are going to raise taxes. The problem is the Appropriation Act, which is what is called the actual budget. And just to tidy up that matter, and why we have zeroed in on the budget and the budget making process, is, for instance, last year the government was able to collect about 2.4 trillion in revenue, the actual figures.
Yes.
But the budget that was read for us, 2024-2025, indicated a revenue of about 3.1 trillion.
So that difference.
There is a difference of a whole trillion that they know they cannot make. There is no way you can raise a trillion in 1 year. And that is called fictitious revenue. So what they do is that they increase the projected revenue.
So it's inflated.
It's inflated, yes. It's fictitious. And because of that inflated revenue, it looks like we can borrow for certain projects. Okay? It looks like we are keeping to the law. And once the budget is passed, then all the fictitious projects and all the fictitious loans that are being called ODS, those projects are done fast. Now, when you then go to the budget, you discover that there is a deficit, obviously, and it is a deficit of 1 trillion.
Yeah.
And what that creates now is what are called pending bills. So you and I have done proper work for government. We have been told to create a road here, and we have done it. We have built a road. and then the government comes and says it has no money to pay. And your payment will be held until next year's budget. But all the other illegal things we had budgeted already paid for. So that budgeted corruption is the challenge that we have. And the law is so clear. For instance, the appropriation bill is supposed to have both revenue and expenditure estimates.
Yes.
From the time this constitution was promulgated, no government has read for us, hasn't presented to us the estimates of revenue. They only give us the estimates of expenditure.
But not revenue.
Not revenue. Yet, estimates of revenue are supposed to be presented even for public participation. But because it is based on that you come up with a finance bill. The finance bill is to raise whatever your deficit.
So really our problem is not even in the tax or the collection.
No. It is in budgeted corruption.
Yeah.
Yes. That anything they want to steal is first put in the budget through fictitious revenue, and then that is what is used to pass the budget. So if we're able to send this word to the people and tell them that during public participation, the Treasury is supposed to present to Parliament both estimates of revenue and estimates of expenditure. And the budget should balance. You tell us this is how much you're going to collect. It must make sense based on what you collected last year. And then you live within your means. This is how much we are going to spend. And if that is done, then this country starts turning around. Because at least you stop taking these crazy loans that nobody is...
You're going to speak to just clarity on what is meant and understood by public participation. Is it sitting in a hall and you hear it is one way, and since you have participated?
You see, public participation is one of the beautiful things that we got from this constitution that is very unique again, because it means the government cannot do some things without coming back to the people to ask. So in public participation, what the government, especially around the budget, what the government is supposed to do is Parliament, the Committee of Parliament, is supposed to release to the public the estimates of revenue and the estimates of expenditure. And all expenditure according to our law, all tax revenue, all loans must be paid from tax revenue. So if you haven't collected enough tax revenue, you cannot take loan. And every development project must be aligned to every development loan must be aligned to a project, and it is listed in the appropriation bill, so that you tell us you're going to borrow this much money from this bank to do this, and it is indicated. Now, if that budget was, if that material was released to the Kenyan public, at the time we are being called to go and give our feedback, then we would go now with having studied it.
There's clarity, and
we have discussed it from the home to the neighborhood association, to the church level, to the religious organizations. We have given our comments, and we go now and we give our memorandum. That's how it's supposed to happen. Now, what usually happens is it is designed to be a rubber stamp thing. So it is put in the newspapers that we are going to go to this and this and this place, and we are going to collect information based on this and that. Then they come and sit in a hall and wait. Or you send your written memoranda. How many people know what a budget is? How many people know how government should prepare the budget? How many people would understand that they have never given us the estimates of revenue? Yes, what they gave us was a finance bill. Yes, the finance bill was not what we were supposed to discuss.
No.
We were supposed to discuss the budget, which is the appropriation bill, the estimates of revenue, estimates of expenditure. Just like you run your house, and you can look and see there is this. So for us to have good civic education, for us to have good public participation, civic education is critical.
Is integral.
And the only organization that has a footprint sufficient to do civic education is the religious bodies. Yes.
Because then you find, I mean, the other day, a novelty in terms of going digital, where the county government of Nairobi says, we're digital, send your views on this, we will collect. We receive 10,000. How, whether they read, whether they didn't, we're not too sure what goes on.
You see, the until they present it in Parliament or wherever they will present it, that's the only time you know whether they listened. Now, if Edmund, if we could reach a point where the person who we put in as MCA and the person we put in as MP understand that the people can remove them.
Oh, yes.
Then they will listen to you. But so long as all they care is which political party will get them to that place, then their allegiance is to the political party. And that is why we must tidy the whole lot. It can't be one area. It has to be the whole area of governance.
In terms of the recall and the term, can I suggest to us that it's not the guaranteed period that you must serve. You can serve less. It's up to.
Yes. In fact, the other thing about the BVAP is that it then becomes a tool for monitoring and evaluation. After we have put you in office, we'll still keep looking at you with these values and see whether you are keeping to them. And as since we had done our public participation and told you our area of interest, then you would be watching that. But maybe even before we go very far, it is important for the Kenyan people to understand the role of the MCA and the role of the MP. Because for a long time we have also held on to the old constitutional thing where we think they're little gods who have money, who are supposed to give us money. Yes.
It is your money.
It is our money.
You know, someone said it's like going to the ATM and thank it for giving money. It is yours. So don't thank the ATM.
So you don't thank the ATM, but it also means we have to stop asking them for money. You know, when we are going to ask them to help us to pay school fees, help us to pay our medical bill, help us to pay this, is because we have not looked at the budget and made sure there is sufficient allocation for school and sufficient allocation for health. It is our business to do that. We must turn the MP and the MCA and the governor and the president into servants and not lords. We must change that attitude. We stop asking them for money. Because now what we are doing is every time we ask politicians for money, we get the only person who wants to go into politics is the one who has the money. He will give you and he will go to recoup.
More, because he'll be asked in future.
He'll be asked in future. So we are also fueling poor governance by demanding money from our leaders.
So Dr. Ahome, how I wish we had the whole day. Indeed. We didn't even touch in terms of future outlook, but just in 30 seconds in terms of what you see as future outlook. And speaking to Katiba Day, we'll definitely have you back, and I envisage a topic, is the system broken or designed to be broken? But 30 seconds.
Yes, I think what we need to do as a body of Christ is the areas we were concerned about would still need to be changed.
Yes.
And KCPF has come up with Hifadhi Jamii Bill that is focusing on those areas that made the church vote no or push for the no campaign. That we can change, that will also help us to correct the things I've mentioned here, to tidy up on Article 26 and tidy up on Article 45, so that the word sex is defined and we are all very clear about that abortion really means bringing a pregnancy to an end, just to give clarity, not to change the Constitution.
Wonderful. Wow, how time flies. Thank you so much, Dr. Ahome. We look forward to hosting you again.
Thank you.
And really, we must speak truth to ourselves, truth to power, because those who put in a reflection of ourselves. This has been the leader courtesy of the Evangelical Alliance of Kenya on Hope Media. We thank you for the privilege of your time. I'm Edmund Budibo. Let's do this next time. God bless.